And you talk about being a voice for people who don't have a voice in the system.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what that's like and what have been your priorities? Mm-hmm. It's difficult to pass any law. It's especially difficult when you're in the minority.
Yeah, super minority. Come on.
and it's really difficult to speak for people who don't have power in a system.
Yeah.
So how do you think about how do you make impact in your job?
It's a great question, Ryan. I think about my job in like 3 buckets. One is the passing laws. Like I'm just a bill sitting on Capitol Hill, in this case, the State House Hill. The second is moving money, so allocating funds to communities, projects, to people, organizations that are doing good work in the community. And then the third bucket is really being a champion. Most of the time, a lot of people, when they call my office, it's almost like my office is supposed to do a lot of miracles. You're a miracle worker, right? Because they've gone through the bureaucracy, they try to go work with the city, or they try to deal with the federal government, and they just don't know where to go. And so they call my office saying, hey, I've tried this, and this. Can you please tell me who I need to talk to or help me navigate this situation? Oh, and by the way, I might get evicted next week, right? And so there's a layering of complexity, and my office has to be really in the zone, if you will, of like figuring out how to get to the root cause of that person's issue, and then ultimately help them, guide them to, various ways to get support and help. So those 3 buckets is how I kind of look at my job. And within those 3 buckets, they require different strategies. And when I think about speaking up for people who don't have the voice, that's really everybody, to be quite frank with you, because a lot of folks don't know what I do, quite frankly. They confuse me with a congressperson when I'm out in the community. They've never been to the State House. That's one of the first questions I ask when I'm doing community events is who's all been to the State House? And mind you, to the audience, I represent House District 1. And that is when they redistricted Ohio, they started in the middle point of Columbus. And so I represent the State House. I represent all of downtown Columbus, so that's capital of our state. And if you were in my office, I would say, everything that the light touches, Simba, is mine. Anything the shadow touches within the 5-mile radius, don't go there, it's not my district. I represent the most central part of Columbus where the State House is. And yet, there are so many in my district who've never been down the street to the State House. And so I have to really be intentional about educating folks first about what I do, how I can support them, and then show in real time, here's what I mean when I say I'm going to support you. And so there's a lot of unpacking that needs to be done with my job. and I love to do it because, again, I didn't have that growing up. I always tell people if I can boil down everything I do in the legislature, it would have been saving my mama because she worked 2 jobs, had to navigate a lot of hardship, finally got a union job, and life got a little bit better. But that still was a struggle for my family as she navigated that transition. And so how do I make Ohio better for all families? And so to speak to the marginalized communities, I'm always intentional about understanding what their needs are, right? And then I take their needs and I bring it with me into the State House. And a lot of my bills that I craft, whether it's the Pay Stub Protection Act, whether it's addressing lead, whether it's addressing eating disorders or addressing, prostate cancer, right? These are things that the communities have come to me and said, hey, we need a real focal point, a real, a member who understands these issues and is willing to impact these issues in real time for us.